SysloSpice digital recipes for dominance. SysloSpice. Recipes for digital dominance. Hello everybody, we're gonna dive right in. All right, here's what's going on. So we got a little bit of SysloSpice coming at you. We're gonna do free weekly trainings on everything relating to marketing, digital media, video production, video editing, website design, graphic design, social media design, how to generate more leads, growing a digital brand, brand transformation, brand strategies. They're all gonna be free live trainings that you're gonna get an accessible link to. We're gonna do it every Wednesday at 7 p.m. My goal is to really educate you, give you some spice, throw some heat on it, build it all together so that you have everything you need for free to check out and improve your brand, your marketing efforts on social media right now, especially right now with everything that's required to bring your brand, your business, whatever it may be, into the digital era. So I hope to see you there. Sign up, let's get you on. I look forward to seeing you there. SysloSpice, recipes for digital dominance. I'll see you there. All right, so we'll get rolling right now. Happy Wednesday, another episode of SysloSpice. I've been traveling the last couple of weeks, so it's been a little nuts, but hopefully we can get back on track here and rock and roll accordingly. The F1 be in Miami right now, so I'm sporting my Aston Martin. I hope those guys do well this week, but we're going to talk about some interesting stuff, and we're going to talk about the longevity of marketing is really what we're going to focus on. So this is SysloSpice every Wednesday, depending if I'm traveling or not. We do a live stream that talks about marketing, advertising, branding, all that good stuff. And so I'm going to share some interesting things with you today. Shouldn't be too crazy, maybe 25 minutes, 30 minutes of everything that we're going to talk about when it comes to the longevity of marketing and what it is that we are, as an agency or even yourselves should be thinking about when it comes to your brand and different aspects of that brand to make it really work for you. So that's what we're going to dive into here today. If you want to get updates on all of the SysloSpice stuff, you can go to my YouTube channel, and there's 14 episodes there already, about 14 hours of content up there. So you can subscribe if you haven't. And then also every Wednesday, if you go to SysloSpiceRecipe.com, you could sign up for free and be notified when I go live on these different episodes that we're doing here. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the longevity of marketing. And I want to start off with a little bit of a story. My guy, Tyler and I were talking, and we run a lot of campaigns. We manage a lot of campaigns. We work with a lot of people. We work with a lot of different industries. And I have been since 2014, really. So I've seen a lot. I've marketed a lot. I've adjusted a lot. I've seen what works. I've seen what doesn't work. And it's really interesting. there is this thing where, and this is what we discussed, was that in real estate, if you invest in real estate, okay, you look at 10%, 12% returns as being really awesome. 5%, 6%, whatever that number is. I don't know. It depends on where you're investing, right? But let's just say on average between 5 and 12% as a conservative return on your investment, right? And we were talking, and for whatever reason, in branding, in advertising, in marketing, and distribution, and all that stuff, there's this thing where it's like, I invested $3,000, therefore I should make $20,000 instantly. And I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I haven't seen that happen without spending a lot of money first to get a spend that actually makes sense. But the reason why I bring that up in correlation to the longevity of what marketing really is you gotta really understand what you're playing here, okay? And what you're playing here is a game that's, the most persistent win, the strongest willed win, the one that understand promotion, the guys that really get it, that, understand that the investment into this is bigger than that initial, return would be, because you start really seeing it after that, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, you've really been hacking at it. You've really been doing everything you got to do. You've been building your content. You've been doing your distribution and all that stuff. And of course, you get winning campaigns along the way. You get winning things along the way. But, I mean, I've told stories where I've worked for a place where it was like, we're going to spend $1 million a month per platform. And it's like, dude, okay, not all of us have that money, but the longevity, you can't think about advertising and marketing the same way you would think about investing in real estate. I mean, you can in the sense of, if you're looking at it from the perspective of, I'm building digital assets that are going to pay me over time, which they do. Actually got a deal today that came through, and the way that it was discussed, and I'm going to go into it a little bit, is just they were indoctrinated into my ecosystem. They were indoctrinated, into the content and into the things that I had developed for the last 6 or 7 years. So that sale was pretty straightforward. Like, it wasn't a difficult sale. And when I think about it, it's like, well, did those investments of my time and the videos and the branding and the marketing that I started back in 2016 for my own brand, it might have been 2017, where I had no followers and I had no position, I had no real altitude. I was brand new. I wasn't getting a lot of attention or traction or anything like that. And then fast track to 2022. So let's just say 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 6 years later, where, you could pull in a 5 or 6 figure deal because of the stuff you did 6 years ago. Now you have to ask yourself, what kind of investment is that? Would you be happy with that kind of return? I saw a video you did 5 years ago, changed my life. I want to give you a 6-figure deal. Well, excuse me. I think that's fantastic. See, but that's how I look at it. It's that longevity play. When you're at the beginning, when you're at the start, you got to avoid that. Well, I spent 20, I want to make 2,000. Okay. In order to get to that number, you probably have to spend $10,000, $15,000 to get that to work correctly, if not more. I don't know. It depends on the product and service. What my agency does, is we really try to fast track that as much as we can through expanded content creation and really, having marketed so many different industries, right? And so for me, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, how do I take the longevity play, but condense that down into 90 days, 6 months? How do I do that? And so we really pull that together with accelerated content creation, which is what we really are focused on right now with most of our guys, is how do we create all this stuff? And then now that, like I was talking to my guy, Dan, today, it's like the party begins now. The party's on. Okay. And, we've all been there. We've all began at ground zero, and we had to climb out from the bottom and get up to the top. But the way that you do it is what we do, is what I'm talking about. So you have to, that story about, that acceptable rate of return on a real estate investment between low end 5%, high end 12 to 15%, maybe more. When you look at advertising, people expect 60, 70, 80% returns, and it's not there yet. It's just not. I mean, you have to spend so much and you have to do so much research and really dive deep. And that's just the correct expectation you need to have. It's not to say it can't happen. I don't want you to think that I'm not saying that. Some guys can blow $1 million or $100,000 or something like that, in 30 days and really fast track that play. But most of us, we want to do it over a gradient scale. Now, why is it? What are we talking about here? Let's move into the second part, which is really important. And that is the indoctrination. And don't think of indoctrination as a bad word, because it's not. Indoctrination just means you are being expanded. You're receiving expanded information from a source to help you better understand what's going on and what to expect from that source, whether it's marketing or business or real estate, whatever. So, and I was talking to a client today, and they were mentioning, the reason why we did the deal was because of the indoctrination that I've had with you for the last 6 or 7 years. And that's really what made me think about the longevity, and why we're really having this topic right now is because of that conversation, right? Here's somebody who's been watching for a long time. Obviously we had timing issues, budget issues, pricing issues, different things along that line, and it just wouldn't connect, but they were around watching. And then one day they come into it and it's like, hey, I'm ready now, and when that deal closes, it's like, well, what kind of ROI could I quantify for all the countless numbers of videos that I've done? Even real estate investors, I've seen that happen, where they acquire, they get $250,000 and so much more and all that stuff coming together. But then you turn into it and it turns around into this thing that makes sense of, wow, okay, that came through from exactly the work that I was focusing on and the direction that I was going, because I put in that effort and that energy over time, and the other side of that coin is, when you start out, whether you've been going for a long period of time or not, I've always said it's not about the numbers that see, we're only looking for that one deal, right? We're only looking for that one deal. So I've scaled a 7-figure ad agency because I focus on what's right in front of me right now, right? Because I want to indoctrinate the people that are following me. I want them to understand what's going on. I want them to see the play. I want them to see the direction. I want them to see and understand where we're coming from so that we can actually do some work. And that's my attitude about it, right? So if you're running your campaigns, or if you're running your marketing, or if you're doing your build outs or whatever that might be, you got to turn around and ask yourself, okay, are we doing a good enough job of really explaining all the angles here? Are we doing a good enough job to really have somebody fully understand what we do so that they're sold before they even get on the phone with us? And that's my mission. The mission that I have is to ask myself, okay, great. Did I do a good enough job to actually get people to say, I'm ready? Did I do a good enough job to get people to keep coming back through my stories and the content and everything that we're reaching? Reaching right now, on average, I'm reaching around 4 million people a month myself with the content that I'm distributing, right? But it didn't start there. I was lucky probably if I reached 20 or 30,000 people a month, but it was because of that viewpoint of taking, okay, I'm going to indoctrinate people into this, my world, and you're going to indoctrinate people into your world. It's like onboarding people when you bring them on. They learn your ways, they learn what you're doing, and then they become part of your crew, right? So it's kind of the same idea. Now, moving on to the next piece of this is looking at it from the perspective of years in the making, right? We want the quick fix. I'm not going to lie. Everybody wants to make their money quick. Everybody wants their ad money returned quick. Everybody wants the 6-pack quick. I want my $150 million business quick. And I do everything I can to accelerate that. And I'm sure everybody else does that's on this call right now. But you also have to look at it from that perspective of years in the making, right? What actions, and I talk to my guy Doug about this every week, is what kind of momentum was generated here? What actions took place last week to generate that momentum for this week, and so on and so forth. And then what ends up happening is that culminating over a couple of years, you culminate over weeks to get deals, you culminate over months to expand, you culminate over half a year or a year. What happens over 3 to 5 years? Well, if you look back to where you started your marketing versus to where you are today, you should see an increase of some dramatic sort. Pulling in bigger deals that you thought were not possible before are all of a sudden possible now, because it just makes sense, because you've invested that time and that energy to build that momentum. My first videos had, like, if I was lucky, 5 or 6 views. Some of my videos have 100,000 views or more, right? So it's looking at it from that perspective, and looking at it from, okay, we're indoctrinating, we're getting people in, we're getting them to understand what I represent, we're putting our money behind it, we're doing that accelerated content creation, but we also got to look at it from years in the making. I can give you so many people that we've worked with where they started 5, 6 years ago, they were nowhere, and they did what we said, they did the things that we're talking about, on these SysloSpice episodes, and my YouTube content, and then the stuff that we do internally when we work with clients, to where they are today. And it's night and day. I mean, guys are doing $250,000, $300,000 deals, just from doing what we're talking about here, or having masterminds with people from all over the country just because they accelerated their communication and they spoke to the right people. And that's really the point of what we're doing here with, years in the making, with this aggressive attitude that we take towards branding, development, and marketing, is that viewpoint, right? Because we're looking at the next piece of this, which is the different types of consumers of content, right? There's the guys that are looking for the quick hit. There's the gals that are looking for the long-term understanding. There's the people that just want to pay now. There's the guys that take a lot of convincing. There's a lot of numbers-oriented people. There's corporate-oriented people. There's logical people. There's people that move on a dime, turn on a dime, make a decision instantly. There's people that take some more time with that. So how do you encapsulate the ability from your industry to talk to all those people? Well, that comes back to that years in the making stance that we're talking about now. Okay. If you've done it correctly, if you've broken it down enough, you've expanded out in all directions where all those people have at least had some piece of content that speaks directly to them, right? The different types of consumers that consumers of content that exist out there is what you're most interested in. Who is it? What are they going through? Are they fast decision makers? Are they slow decision makers? Do they say, okay, we're going on a trip, I'll call you back in a month, or I'll keep watching until I see something that actually makes sense to me to make me want to actually purchase this? What is that for you? What is that for that individual? You as a marketer, you as an individual that has a product or service, has to turn around and say, well, that makes sense to me. I need to play that game. I need to really look at this. I need to know if I'm actually hitting all those levels. Am I talking to the new investors? Am I talking to newbies? Am I talking to experienced people? Am I talking to somebody that's running a Fortune 500 company? How does that conversation go? And can that conversation actually take place via your social media, right? Or are you really one-sided on one thing, one style, one this, one that, and you're not bridging the gaps that need to exist, right? So all the content that I try to create and what I try to do is really span that gamut, right? Because I'm thinking about the potential consumer of that content. I'm thinking about what that person might say. I'm thinking about what that person might need. I'm thinking about, okay, are they going to buy right now? Could they buy right now? Could they do something today? What's it going to take for them to do it today? What's it going to take to speed up that accelerated process? What's it going to take for them to say, I really want to buy, I want to do something at the moment? Where does that come into the actual content creation play here? And so in marketing, the longevity of that, this all builds upon itself. Okay. Having we got 30 days to move 1,000 units. I mean, okay, great. But you better be prepared to spend a lot of cash to move 1,000 units, especially if no one's ever known you before. I'm not trying to be negative about it. I'm not trying to be rude about it, but I am trying to get a little bit of realistic thing. Look, I'm a big believer. I'm ambitious. I like to play big games. I go for it. I charge hard for it. But I also know that there's some sandboxes that I have to play within, right? And that's really where I need to be from an ethical standpoint as a marketer, and also with my team and how we approach things, is that we approach it from a very ethical standpoint of, okay, this is where you are. This is where we're going to take you. Here's the game. Here's the process. You do X, Y, and Z, you get the results. Okay. You go to the gym, you follow the diet, you do this, you get the results. That's really where you need to be. Graham is asking me a question here. Let me pull that up so we could take a look at this. Graham said, when you're starting out, you have no brand to leverage. When do you have a brand? What are some of the measures? Is it having a certain viable number of people who understand what you do or will buy your stuff? That was actually my next part of this, which is perfect, which makes sense that you would ask that question. So basically the question is, when do you know if you have a brand? Like, when do you know if it's actually working? And I'll just dive right into that section right now. So good question, Graham. So it's a combination of things. There's a few things. The first thing is people kind of start saying, I see you all over the place. I see a lot of your content. I see what you're doing. I see the stuff. I love what you're putting out. You start getting little drops of that. I see you promoting everywhere. You can ask a question also if you're on Instagram. Go ahead. You see that deal of, okay, people are starting to comment in the breakdowns of what it is that you're doing. So that's really the first indication that I look out for. That's number one. Number two is people will start to approach you on different subjects. People might ask your opinion about certain things. People might ask for you to, evaluate certain things. People may come to you for help. People might refer you for business. People might actually bring you, referrals that you can work with. There'll be dialogues in and around this conversation that just are pertaining to more curiosity and more interest into what you're doing. That's when the brand is actually there, because now you're being trusted as a resource. You're being sought after as an expert. And I don't want to use the word expert, but you're being sought after because you've demonstrated a level of competency that people can say, I viably want to talk to this person. So I would look for an increase in communication. If you have packages, or if you don't have packages that you can offer people, whether it's coaching, whether it's a product, t-shirts, apparel, whatever that might be, you got to look at it and ask yourself, okay, am I prepared if somebody starts to talk to me could I actually offer them that product and service, right? So I would say on the backside, be a little prepared because you could get a sale out of that. But that's usually when I start to notice that, the brand is actually functioning and this thing is actually going the way that I want it to go. Otherwise, aside from income, aside from people purchasing, that's how I measure the metrics. And then you could look at your analytics. You could look at all that data. You could look at all that information and see, kind of how that's scaling up over time. Is there an increase at all taking place? And if you're not seeing the increase, might be time to do a little bit of advertising, spend some money on some ads, reach some individuals, make sure that you're really doing that. And you don't have to use a lot. You could use exactly what you need to use, 250, 500, you got $1,000, great. If you got 100 grand, even better. You got $1 million, even better. Some of our guys, when they drop the big ones, it starts to move really fast. But yeah, that's how I would really quantify if it's actually working. I start to see the conversation change from really no conversation to a conversation, just out of sheer persistence and sheer aggressiveness on my side to really distribute and continuously show up. So Graham, I hope that actually answers your question. And if you have other questions, you can go ahead and ask me. But yeah, so that's what we're talking about here, the longevity of marketing. If you guys have questions, you can go ahead and ask, but just kind of to do a slight recap on everything that we talked about. Wasn't going to do a long one today, but really understand that investing into any type of branding or advertising, you cannot have the same type of viewpoint that you would have if you were investing into real estate or other assets, right? You can't look at it and say, well, I spent $5 grand, I want 100 grand. Okay, great. When you find that planet, let me know, because I'll go there with you, right? But that's not Earth. That's not where we are. Okay. Now you can get there. It can happen. It will happen, but you got to be prepared to spend a lot of money to achieve that. Or you've got to be someone of substantial power and influence that already has a huge base that you could talk to and work with. Second thing is the indoctrination of customers or the consumers of your content, right? So it's just that willingness, that communication, that persistence over time to really get people to look back and say, okay, they keep seeing you, they keep seeing you. I had a guy today, didn't respond, hasn't responded for probably 3 months. Been following up, sending emails, sending information. Blah, 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 blah. Today he answered the phone, we had the conversation, and that's going to turn into a deal. And I'm happy with that. Follow up in marketing is just as important as follow up in sales. The different types of consumers of your content, really be aware of those guys. Like, what types of people consume? Are they fast consumers, slow decision makers, fast decision makers? Need to talk to other people, decision makers. That's really a gauge of where you need to go with that. And then the recap of, when to know if it's really working. You start being sought after for information on anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be related to the actual product and services that you have. It could just be anything, because you are demonstrating that you are someone that knows exactly what you're talking about. All right. So with that, I'm going to leave it. We're going to roll out. We'll do another episode next week. I am not traveling next week, so I will be here. And as always, if you want to subscribe, you can go to SysloSpiceRecipe.com. If you need help with your marketing and your advertising or whatever that might be, you want to accelerate your content, direct message me, reach out to me. We've got a lot of cool things going on right now. 90 days of content in about 4 hours. We can help you produce that. It's working really great for some of our clients right now. And if you're interested, hit me up with a direct message. Otherwise, I will see you all next week on the next episode of SysloSpice. So thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. Take care.